Hi, I'm Barry Hodge and I'm the Head of Fundraising and Communications for the charity St Basil's. St Basil's is a youth homeless charity that has existed for almost 50 years. We support almost 4,000 young people every single year. We accommodate about 600 every single night in one of our over 40 accommodation projects throughout the whole of the West Midlands. So St Basil's has been around since 1972, so almost 50 years.
Wow.
Our birthday is the 1st of October actually. It's a weird thing to be celebrating because we are essentially celebrating the fact that we still exist. The whole concept of charity really is to sort of, how would I put it, do itself out of a job. Because the reality is that with youth homelessness, you know, as long as it exists, you know, we will always exist ourselves. And the truth of the matter is that the issues that lead to homelessness will always exist. So yeah, 50 years we've been here, and yeah, we're very much part of the community. There's a whole range of things that go on with you know, the support that we provide. A lot of people believe that you put a roof over someone's head, that's the end of homelessness. Well, no, it isn't. And the bizarre thing is that, and I use this term loosely, the easiest part of our job is putting a roof over someone's head. You know, that's the easy part. The hard part is keeping the roof over someone's head.
So you're saying it depending on someone's circumstances?
Oh, completely, yeah, absolutely. And no individual, you know, is the same, really. I mean, yeah, okay, there are a couple of common threads that we will see. The number one reason for homelessness is and always will be a family breakdown. So whether it be in the case of a charity like St Basil's, it's usually a breakdown between parents and guardians. With older people, it may be the breakdown of a marriage or a partnership as well. So yeah, there's a whole range of reasons. So the approach from us is very much about supporting, you know, young people who, you know, are having family breakdowns, who have issues with their physical and mental well-being, in order how to cope with all those things. You know, support into employment, education, training, you know, life skills. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is prepare a young person for independent living, where they don't have to rely on St Basil's or rely on anybody else.
Thank you.
Well, the typical approach is that when a young person is, we would call it referred to us. So a young person can be referred through various means. They may come through the fact that they've declared as homeless through a local authority, so the council. They may refer themselves, you know, so they may contact us through Facebook or any of our other social media channels. They may be referred through schools, through colleges, through universities. When they come to us, it's very much a bespoke approach to them. It's understanding that young individual's needs. You know, what's going on in their lives, what's led to them having to essentially come to the front door of a St Basil's building. And it may well be that there's been a falling out in the family, you know, where it's just, you know, there's an issue going on there, and what we will be doing with that is trying to see if there's a way in which that young person can return to the family home. Because ultimately, you know, preventing homelessness isn't just about putting a roof over someone's head from our perspective. It's about looking at all the options, what's going to be best for that young person. Now, if it isn't safe to accommodate, you know, then obviously we will look, if it isn't safe for that young person to return to the family home, we will also...
So you have alternative plans for those young individuals to come around and see what options they can be selected?
Oh, completely, yeah. It's all about the options, you know, for us. So if it's a case of, you know, that young person can't return to the family home because it isn't safe, then we're looking at ways in which we can either accommodate ourselves, or there's other suitable accommodation for them, perhaps with other family members, whatever it may be. Because ultimately, at the root of all this is what's in the best interest of the young person. It's very hard to say, you know, it really depends on where that individual's at. You know, a young person might be with us for a few days, but a young person could be with us for a couple of years. It really depends. There isn't a standard answer to that. There's some kind of prerequisite guidance around how long a young person might stay with us for. So, for example, in Birmingham, a young person, we are contracted to support a young person for 9 months. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the funding that we get from the council will cover a 9-month period. Now, if a young person isn't ready to move on after 9 months, then they will stay with us. We apply for extensions and we go through that process. It becomes a bit complicated, and it depends on what area that you're in. So in Coventry it's different, in North Worcestershire it's different, in Solihull it's different. It really is dependent on the area you're in. But ultimately, at the root of all this, is all guided by where the young person's at. It comes back to the approach that we offer. You know, the way we look at it, I wouldn't call it rehabilitation exactly, but it's progressing a young person from a point in their life where things haven't been great, or whatever's going wrong in their life, to getting them to a point where they can live independently. Now, in terms of the tools that we use, it's all about life skills. It's all about mental support, you know. So we call it MST, which is My Strengths Training. What that means is that when a young person comes to us, and if this is the issue they're facing, because a lot of the young people that come to us, they don't have mental health issues. A lot of the young people that may come to us essentially have an issue around the fact that that it's unaffordable for them to live live on their own, because they've not been able to get a job, or they've not been able to, whatever's going on in that life where they can't, navigate the market as well. But if we're talking about the support that's provided to a young person that is going through trauma, who is going through a difficult time, the MST stuff, the My Strengths Training stuff is fundamental to that, because that's about teaching resilience, teaching coping mechanisms, and really sort of bringing that young person up. So again, it's all channeling into that, a young person moving on and living independently. The main way the public supports us is through fundraising.
So you're engaging with them?
Yeah. Yeah, we engage. I mean, there's a couple of things when it comes to what we do. We want to tell a story. There are misconceptions about homelessness. People, the thing that people think about homelessness is they'll see in their head the image of probably an older person, slightly older person in a doorway, perhaps addicted to drugs, perhaps addicted to alcohol, severe mental health trauma, all those things. Now, that is an element of homelessness, of course it is, but it's the tip of the iceberg, and it's not the full story as well. Real homelessness means no fixed abode, so it's people who are living in temporary accommodation. The misconception that homelessness is a male problem, it's not, it's a female problem. There are more women affected by homelessness. Why is that? Because many of them are fleeing domestic violence. Many of them we're dealing with, in St Basil's, we're dealing with a lot of young women who have got children. So, that's homelessness. So one of the big things about the public is really challenging perceptions and giving the true story of what it is.
So it depends on the situation?
Well, completely, it depends on the situation, yeah. So that's the one way, so that's the way we're engaging with the public. And then obviously we cannot do the work that we do without fundraising. So it is through fundraising events, it's through companies making us a charity of the year, it's about someone who's decided to run the Great Birmingham Run for us, it's things like that. But you tend to find that those two things go hand in hand. Once people understand what we're about, what we're trying to achieve, then they want to help, and they do that through fundraising. Don't be too proud to ask for help. That's it in a nutshell. Now let me kind of elaborate on that a little bit. We live in a society where it's seen as weakness to ask for support and ask for help. We all struggle, we all have issues in our lives. I always use the analogy of a table to describe homelessness, but actually it applies to every aspect of our lives. I'll do it quickly. Homelessness, if you think about it, represents the tabletop, right? That's homelessness. And the four legs that preventing homelessness from happening, are as follows. They are your family relationships, so your support network, your ability to make money, so your job and education, your physical and mental well-being, and the roof over your head. And all it takes is for one of those table legs to go, and the table can become unsteady, and it impacts the other table legs, and everything comes crashing down. But that can be applied, as I say, to every aspect of our life. If we're struggling with our mental and physical well-being, if we're struggling in a job, if we're struggling with relationships, what we tend to do is we try to fix the problem ourselves, and we don't ask for help. So if I could give a message to any young person that's watching this, if you're really struggling at this point in time, if you're having difficulties at home, if you are really struggling with your mental health, then reach out to get support, because here's the thing, we only ever tend to react when we're at crisis point. And surely it's better to not get to crisis point.
It's better late than never.
It's better early than never, if I'm honest. That would be the message I would give, because when you get to a point where a young person is standing at the door, in front of the St Basil's building, looking for support, they're at crisis. And what you tend to find is a lot of the stuff that could have prevented that from happening could have been sorted. We call it upstream. You know yourself, when you look at a flowing river, and it's leading to a waterfall, what happens? It speeds up, it speeds up, it speeds up, and then wow, you're at the waterfall and it crashes down. The waters are calmer up here, and that's when the problems start to begin, So if we can be here, then we can help better. Doesn't mean that we can't deal with, we deal with that every day. That's our bread and butter. But my message is, don't be afraid to ask for help.
After watching this interview, we have discovered the alternatives, the concept of these individuals who are facing poverty day by day. The St. Basil's website is available and accessible for you to use. If you want to learn more about homelessness in general, please go on www.stbasils.org.uk. Thank you very much.